Have you ever heard of a god who is a serpent, but also a bird? Sounds like a comic book character, right? Well, today, we're diving deep into the incredible story of the Feathered Serpent, one of the most fascinating and complex deities in all of ancient Mesoamerica. This isn't just a story of myths and legends. It's a tale that's shaped empires, inspired art, and continues to capture our imagination thousands of years later. So, grab your explorer's hat, because we're about to journey back in time to the world of the Aztecs. First things first, what does Quetzalcoatl even mean? The name comes from the Nahuatl language, spoken by the Aztecs. Quetzal refers to the resplendent Quetzal bird, famous for its long, shimmering green tail feathers, and Coatl means serpent. So, literally, he's the feathered serpent, or plumed serpent. Just picture that for a moment. A massive snake, covered not in scales, but in the most beautiful, iridescent feathers you can imagine. It's a powerful image, blending the earthbound serpent with the celestial, high-flying bird. This duality is key to understanding who he was. He represented the union of earth and sky, the material and the spiritual. Now, you might think of the Aztecs as this fierce warrior culture, and you wouldn't be wrong. But Quetzalcoatl represents a different side of their beliefs. He wasn't a god of war or sacrifice, at least not in the same way as, say, Huitzilopochtli, their sun and war god. Instead, Quetzalcoatl was the god of wind, of the morning star Venus, of knowledge, learning, arts, and crafts. He was the patron of priests and merchants. He was considered a creator god, a civilizing hero who brought humanity everything from the calendar and books to the knowledge of farming maize. In many ways, he was the god of everything that made civilization possible. The stories about his origins are as epic as you'd expect. In one of the most famous Aztec creation myths, the world had been created and destroyed 4 times before the current era, the 5th sun. After the 4th destruction, the earth was a barren wasteland, and the bones of the previous generation lay in the underworld. It was Quetzalcoatl who bravely journeyed into this dangerous realm to retrieve those bones. He had to trick Mythology, the fearsome lord of the underworld, to get them. Once he succeeded and brought the bones back to the surface, he and other gods ground them into a powder and shed their own blood on it. From this sacred mixture, the humans of our current age were born. So, according to this legend, we owe our very existence to Quetzalcoatl's courage and sacrifice. But Quetzalcoatl wasn't just a distant, abstract creator god. He was also believed to have walked the earth as a human king. The legend tells of a wise and benevolent ruler named Quetzalcoatl. Tepiltzin Quetzalcoatl, who governed the ancient city of Tolan, or Tula. Under his rule, Tula became a paradise. The corn grew to be the size of a person. The cotton grew in all different colors, right on the stalk, and the people lived in peace and abundance. He taught them art, science, and philosophy. And he was said to oppose the practice of human sacrifice, instead promoting offerings of flowers, incense, and butterflies. He was the perfect king, a true bringer of a golden age. So what happened to this perfect utopia? Well, this is where the story takes a tragic turn. Quetzalcoatl had an enemy, a rival god named Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. Tezcatlipoca was a god of night, sorcery, and destiny in many ways. Quetzalcoatl's dark opposite. He was jealous of Quetzalcoatl's power and the love the people had for him. So, Tezcatlipoca devised a cunning plan. He disguised himself and presented Quetzalcoatl with a mirror. When Quetzalcoatl saw his own reflection for the first time, he was horrified by his aged, human appearance. Then, Tezcatlipoca tricked him into drinking pulque, an alcoholic beverage. Intoxicated, the once pious king broke his sacred vows. When he awoke the next morning, filled with shame and regret, Quetzalcoatl knew he could no longer rule his people. He had fallen from grace. So, he abdicated his throne and left Tula, heading east toward the Great Sea, the Gulf of Mexico. The legends diverge here. Some say he built a funeral pyre, and as his body burned, his heart rose into the sky and became the morning star. Venus. Others say he sailed away on a raft of serpents, promising that one day he would return from the east to reclaim his kingdom. And this prophecy, this promise of return, is perhaps the most famous and controversial part of the Quetzalcoatl story. Fast forward a few hundred years to 1519. A fleet of Spanish ships, led by Hernan Cortes, lands on the coast of Mexico. Coincidentally, the year 1519 in the Aztec calendar was Quetzalcoatl, or one reed, the very year prophesied for Quetzalcoatl's return, and they came from the east, just as the legend said. The Aztec Emperor Moctezuma II was a deeply religious man. When he heard reports of these strange light-skinned, bearded men arriving from the sea, he was deeply troubled. Could this be the returning Quetzalcoatl? This is a huge point of historical debate. For a long time, the popular story was that Moctezuma and the Aztecs fully believed Cortes was Quetzalcoatl, and this is why they welcomed him so openly, ultimately leading to their own downfall. It makes for a dramatic story, but many modern historians are skeptical. They argued that this narrative was largely constructed after the conquest, perhaps by the Spanish to legitimize their actions, or even by indigenous people trying to make sense of the catastrophic events that had just unfolded. It's more likely that Moctezuma was cautious and uncertain. He was a powerful emperor dealing with an unknown, potentially divine, force. He sent gifts and emissaries, trying to figure out who these newcomers were. The idea that he just rolled out the red carpet for a returning god might be an over. Regardless of the historical reality, the connection between Cortes and the Quetzalcoatl prophecy became a powerful part of the narrative of the Spanish conquest. It demonstrates how deeply ingrained this deity was in the Aztec worldview. His story wasn't just a myth, it was living history, prophecy, and a framework for understanding the world. Beyond the Aztec Empire, Quetzalcoatl's influence was widespread. The Feathered Serpent was a major deity for many cultures across Mesoamerica for over 1,000 years before the Aztecs even rose to power. The great city of Teotihuacan, which peaked centuries before the Aztecs, has a massive temple dedicated to the Feathered Serpent, decorated with incredible stone carvings of his likeness. The Maya had a similar figure known as Kukulkan, which also translates to plumed serpent. You can see his imagery all over Chichen Itza, including the famous pyramid where, during the equinox, the shadow of a serpent appears to slither down the staircase. This shows that the concept of a divine feathered serpent was a fundamental part of Mesoamerican religion, evolving and adapting over centuries. So, Quetzalcoatl was a creator god, a culture hero, a legendary king, a fallen priest, a prophesied returning savior, and a symbol of the link between the earthly and the divine. He represents knowledge over ignorance, civilization over chaos, and a more peaceful form of worship. His story is a complex tapestry of myth, history, and prophecy that reveals the incredible depth of Mesoamerican thought. It's a reminder that ancient cultures were not just about war and sacrifice, but also about art, science, philosophy, and the eternal human quest for meaning. The Feathered Serpent may no longer be worshipped in grand temples, but his image and story continue to fly through our collective imagination, as powerful and captivating as ever. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed learning about Quetzalcoatl, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history and mythology. Let me know in the comments which ancient god or legend you'd like to explore next. See you in the next video.